This week on your Old School RuneScape update, Defender of Varrock releases paving the way for the continuation of Old School's Mahjarrat storyline. We discuss the quest with a focus on things changed from the old days and what made this version sing. Also, the Defender grind and Varlamore leaks. This is the Old School RuneScape update, episode 16, recorded Saturday, February 24th, 2024. Defender Drought. Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of the Old School RuneScape update. Sirion is back this week. You survived you survived the slushy slopes.
I survived the slushy slopes. I have skied through snow, I have skied through puddles, I have skied through mud, but I skied. So it was a successful trip.
The one you didn't mention was if you went water skiing.
I didn't go water skiing, but it might as well have been with how warm it was.
So it was like one of those days you go out on the hill and you come back more wet than when you started then.
I don't fall all the time, Shane. A little bit of trust.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that was like me when I went skiing once or twice, and then I had an ankle injury in a subsequent year, and wearing those kind of boots became very painful. But that's not what this show is, folks. We're not the outdoors adventure show. Maybe we might be in the summer, but nonetheless, Old School RuneScape update is here this week. We weren't expecting what we got here this week so soon, I don't think. Were we expecting Defender of Varrock so soon?
Not quite, no.
No. But of course, show notes, update.show/OS. Discord is at update.show/Discord. And we have a friends chatting game as well, which is at BitsBytes. So I think we ought to just, dive right into Defender of Varrock here. We'll talk about what we've been doing on the path, but obviously quest week. We love quest weeks here. I said to you when you were still in the midst of your wet skiing trip that we should try and get this done for the podcast this week.
Yeah.
And
that
we
was
like, oh,
thanks for that. Thanks for my vacation.
Yeah, you did both. We had What Lies Below left over, which was, nice and simple. You did that on mobile, and then you surprised me, and you actually also did Defender of Varrock on mobile, too.
I did Defender of Varrock on my laptop.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Okay, that's not as impressive then. In any case, how do you feel about where we're at with this quest? Because context for listeners, we both, of course, done Defender of Varrock when Old School was Mainscape back in the day. And looking at it, from that perspective of being something that we'd done before, but maybe something that we're going to experience a little bit different this time. I always have an interesting thing with these sorts of things. I had no memory of this quest going into it until I went into the underground cavern portion of it.
Yeah, same for me, honestly. I remembered very little of it. Honestly, this was sort of before the time where I spent a lot of my time on quests. Going back in the base and looking over the balconies for the cutscenes, that's when things started to dawn on me.
Yeah.
Oh right, that's a thing.
Yeah, and obviously, it's got that, what I feel is really a weak hunter tie-in, in that it uses, like, the trapping mechanism from the skill, which needs, of course, 52 hunter for that. I feel like that's a rather weak tie-in, but it is what it is, of course. On the whole, the quest was shorter than I remembered it being, and I think the biggest thing that I want to talk about with this, and you can tell me if I'm wrong on this, comes back to that actual cutscene here when we start, seeing what Zemouregal is doing and how he's talking with the undead Arav at that point.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's when the quest kicks it truly into high gear. And I'm just going to do the usual thing we do on Quest Week. Spoilers ahead if you haven't done Defender of Varrock, because we're going to talk about some things that maybe happened in the quest and some things that might be happening in the future. So if you're somebody who wants to have that preserved from you, well, maybe plug your ears for a little bit. The thing that stood out to me with this is that if you look at this quest in terms of what's different from the original version, one of the things that they specifically mention with this in the cutscene is that there was more exposition added in terms of highlighting what Zemouregal is talking about, as in his cryptic mention of the Stone of Jazz and what's going to be happening up north, and the things pointing towards that, I think.
Yeah, honestly, it felt a little bit shoehorned. And look, maybe it's caused by the fact that I know what's sort of going to happen and how it all links together.
Right.
But it almost felt a little bit like a sentence added in the middle of a conversation. It I don't know. It stood out.
Yeah.
And I don't think dialogue should stand out in a quest.
No, and see, the interesting thing about that, and keeping in mind we haven't done the Secrets of the North quest or whatever it's called yet, so we don't know what the full lore ramification is on that side of the Mahjarrat equation. But the interesting thing I think about this is that, yeah, you're telegraphing, of course, that there's going to be something after While Gothic Sleeps, and of course the devs have said we're not, going to backport Ritual of the Mahjarrat like we're backporting Defender of Varrock and While Gothic Sleeps. We're going to kind of do our own Mahjarrat finale, and of course that's what's talking about when it points to what's happening up north. And I think you do have a point that you don't necessarily need to shoehorn something like that in, right?
Yeah.
But I think go ahead.
It suffers a little bit from, like, if you look at the quest as a whole, I feel it doesn't really compare well against some of the recent quests we've seen developed from scratch.
Like the current ones, for example.
Like the current ones, right? Like, I could tell this was a quest from the era of, like, 2008.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
The whole thing felt a little bit, I don't know, like the characters weren't convincing. And actually the Old School channel released like a video from one of the content creators on that channel.
Yeah, I have that linked in the show notes because that's an important thing to actually talk about.
Yeah, and it gives like this entire prequel to the quest. And I hadn't watched it before doing the quest.
Okay,
and
good.
Even now, I think if I had known that background, I think the quest would have worked better.
Right, and the interesting thing about this is that a lot of the lore that's actually recapped in Defender of Varrock was mentioned in that video, and in many ways that video foreshadows what we see in the Defender of Varrock quest. So they kind of go hand in hand together. So the thing that I see with this is that, well, if you have a lore video like this that accompanies a quest, then yeah, that kind of ties things together. But what if, instead they did manage to incorporate some of the aspects and, some of the storytelling mechanisms from this video into Defender of Varrock, if Defender of Varrock was, of course, a quest written in 2024.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think that would have made the characterization of Araf, like, the tragedy that is, right? It would have actually highlighted that a little bit more. Like, the character in the quest falls a little bit flat. Like, I don't really feel much because you've never really...
No, because it's just Shield of Arab before this.
Yeah, like, you don't know Arav as anything else but the zombie that is leading the forces.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It, like... having some kind of prequel or even like a flashback in the quest, I think would have tied things together really nicely. And that's why the quest as a whole feels a little bit simplistic in a sense, right? Like,
and to be fair, it is a backport from 2008.
Yes, exactly. I want to be careful here. I'm not saying this as like necessarily a bad thing.
No, of course not.
But it doesn't really create a super solid foundation to start tinkering with it and putting this this extra lore in.
Right,
So,
because if you want to start tinkering it, that's when you have to lean in to those bits of dialogue that were added between Zemouregal and Undead Arav there, realizing that the thing he's talking about is, of course, the Stone of Jazz. The thing happening up north is going to be the Mahjarrat rejuvenation ritual. And when you tie all of this together, you get to, I think, what is going to be probably the most interesting thing that I'm going to take away from Old School's Mahjarrat storyline is that they're able, at least I assume this is how it's going to go, they're able to do something that feels like it's important and an impending threat without it being a world-ending phenomena, while also still keeping a sufficient level of mystery behind it. Because I think if I, look at the DNA of a RuneScape quest across both Old School and RuneScape 3, and when Old School was Mainscape, if I look at that cross DNA, the thing that has always hooked me with interest in a quest has been when they went on that mystery bandwagon. Like when Zaros was first mentioned at the dig site, like when the Elder Gods were first mentioned in Devious Minds or something like that, right? Like all those sorts of little mystery things, while still advancing that cause of mystery without being over the top. And if the Old School Mahjarrat quest line can do that, I think I'm going to be very happy with it at the end of the day. And that's kind of what I'm reading into this after doing Defender of Varrock.
Right. Gotcha.
So that's what I chose to take away from it. And, I think your perspective on it is 100% valid too. And maybe simpler is better. I don't know. As in not having the tie-ins in game and having it in the lore video?
I don't know. It for me, it sort of stems out of the fact that, like, Zemouregal is not really an established character at this point, I feel. And all of a sudden, he's talking about, we should be scared. Like, he almost has it in the north, right? Like, it feels a little bit like we haven't even established this character yet, and he's already sort of hinting at something else. I think that's sort of where I noticed
is this incarnation of Defender of Varrock relying on people's knowledge of the RuneScape, the wider RuneScape lore of who Zemouregal is and what the Mahjarrat are?
I don't
to carry it.
Think so. Maybe. I mean, there's like some requirements, so it's unlikely you'll go into Defender of Varrock without. But yeah, I think Zemouregal it's not necessarily a flattering or good depiction of him in this quest, right? He shows up. He is a vessel for saying that something is up in the north. And he has a master plan, and the plan gets thwarted because we find the one person who can carry a shield that just kills all the zombie, and he just shrugs and says, "Well, that didn't work. Better next time."
Right, and of course we know what the better next time turned out to be an RS3.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why the whole it didn't quite tie together as nicely, and I don't think it's a bad quest.
No, and it's not the fault of the devs. It's not the fault of the design. It's just that this was 2008.
Yeah, exactly. And Look, I really like what they did with the integration into Camdesal.
Yeah,
Right? Like
that's
that was
exactly what I wanted to say next on this, because
that was done beautifully. I think
it just got
felt.
like a single line mention in the original, I think, whereas we actually have
Oh,
to
you
go
went
there and
to the
interact with it.
you went to the forge, and there's like a blind Imcando there, but it we of course have Camdesal
Yeah,
because of Below Ice Mountain, and I think the way they modified the quest, it still works, and I think it even works better, and I think it's an improvement over
yeah,
the original.
that was definitely a highlight of the quest.
Mm-hmm.
And it really, I don't know about you, but I haven't done much in Camdesal since we unlocked it.
Oh, not at all, no.
Yeah. And this really made me want to go back there. And just like everything else, that is, modern old school after 2018, you can really see the unique art direction there as well.
Yeah.
And I feel like that enhanced Defender of Varrock, if I can say that.
I can see how you, yeah.
Just bringing
Fair.
that kind of thing forward with that. So, and who was your person who turned out to be the descendant?
I believe it was Romeo.
Okay, mine was surprising.
Oh, nice and quick.
Yeah, like literally the first one I talked to right out the door of Reldo's place.
Yeah.
But
yeah, no. Oh, like I did sort of What Lies Below and Defender of Rock like right after each other, and like What Lies Below is not a great. It's very fetchy.
Yeah.
So in that respect, I think Defender of Rock was, in terms of like as an actual quest and as an actual, with all the mechanics and the talking and running around, like maybe it lacked a puzzle, but other than that, it hit all the marks of a quest, right?
Yeah, it definitely did. It definitely did. We also, of course, have to thank the Jagex team for making us not go into the wilderness.
That's nice.
Given how active the wilderness is here, so that is appreciated. And for anybody wondering what the full list of changes are between this and the original, the RuneScape wiki at the very end of their quest page for this has a list of all of the differences between the two quests. If you're really interested and really want to dive down and see what the differences are between these, we're not going to go through those here, but I just wanted to mention that was actually on the wiki page for this, for anybody who's interested in that. And they specifically do mention what I picked up on going through the quest, more about Lucian, more about the Stone of Jazz with that. So very clear that that's where they're going to be going with this. It was also posted to the Clan Quest Discord that this week with this update, the graphic piece for the Staff of Armadillo was updated.
Yeah, it's funny. Like we did that quest not too long ago, and it just looks like an Earth staff, and we laughed at that.
And I mean, with that, we know that that's probably going to play a bigger role in the future with it receiving a graphical update and not necessarily being involved in Defender of Rock. And of course, knowing the real history behind the Staff of Armadillo, if Old School does, decide to go down the Elder Artifact path with that, and as well as mentioning the stone too. So,
yep.
I'm very interested to see what comes next with this. Have you sampled the armored zombies at all after this?
Nope.
Okay. I went there for a bit. Still a little bit too high leveled for me, I have to say, in the low 70s. So I'd imagine, heading into the 80 range, that would probably be better. And of course, they dropped the zombie axe. But I did have a chat with somebody who did spend some time there, and the general sense is that they are going to be wonderful for XP, and he was ticking anywhere between about 90 and 100,000 XP an hour. in terms
Neat.
at the armored zombies there for that. So I figured that's probably something everyone's going to be happy about, because I feel like there's always been some sort of ambiguity, at least on the melee side, about where you go after 70, 80 with the crabs, right? We all want, something that's a little bit more XP, but also that kind of AFK combat training
Crabs
style.
all the way, man.
But
Crabs all the way.
I don't think you would want to stay at crabs until 99.
Watch me.
Are you challenging yourself to that? Like I inadvertently challenged myself to 99 agility?
Oh no, I'm not challenging myself to anything because I change my mind a lot.
Okay, so I'm gonna use this as an opportunity then to back out on my challenge to myself of 99 agility on trail.
No, that's lame.
That's
lame.
Anything else with Defender of Varrock then, or are we happy to talk about the rest of our week?
No, I mean, no. I think as a whole, it's not a bad addition. Like
No.
It sounds very subdued, and it kind of is, but in a sense, it's there because it's a prerequisite to while Gothic sleeps.
And we knew what we were getting going in.
Yeah.
So, all right, good. Have you been doing anything this week in addition to these quests, AFK wise, on the other side of your trip?
Yeah, I mean, mobile has been my I don't know, both my savior and the reason I should really be spending more time with family instead of using my phone. But no, I did a bunch of training. I'm trying to knock out some requirements for Song of the Elves, as well as getting base 60 sort of at the same time.
Right.
So I've been doing a bunch of Herblore because the money from my herb runs was sort of stacking up. And you need to spend that somehow, right? So
yeah, and that's something that I'm always a fan of, is that, if you're just sitting on money and you're not, turning it into more money or utilizing it for something, what's the point in having it, right?
Especially when you're still sort of in the mid-level and, the grinds are not too long. You really want to be spending it on gaining levels as quickly as possible, because it's still so easy to spend like maybe 2 hours doing a skill and unlocking a capability that makes your life so much easier and more efficient. There's really no reason not to do that.
Yeah. Fair enough.
So yeah, I'm working on Herblore right now.
Prayer potions, I assume.
Sorry?
Prayer potions?
No, super strengths and until 66, and then now I've switched to super defense. I needed those anyway as my own supply, so I'm selling a bunch of them back, but not all of them. Okay,
fair enough. And see, the interesting thing I always find about that is that if you look at the whatever potion is going to be making the most money, prayer potion is always something that's very profitable here on OS. So I was just that's specifically why I was wondering, are you going to just do prayer potions even if it's lower XP but more money coming in? So fascinating.
No, I did not. I tried finding a balance between like affordable and fast.
Right. Right. Okay.
Yeah, and other than that, same with fletching. I got 55 fletching. I've got 60 fletching banked. So that's another one. And this is sort of before my vacation, so sort of the week before last week. I did a bunch of grinds. I got some equipment grinds done. Xeric's Talisman, pretty good thing to have. It helps with my herb runs. A slightly closer teleport to the Osidious patch, so nice to have. It's like you can buy Lizardman Fangs on a GE for like 17 GP, and that's like you need one per teleport charge, so it's a really cheap teleport in comparison to some others.
I think if you pull that out, that's even cheaper than a house teleport to the south.
Exactly. Exactly. So, and it allows me to move my house around a little bit more freely. I need to do it for some achievement diaries. So that's what I decided to get. But before that, I did my defenders. And oh boy, I kept track of my numbers.
Okay, let's hear these.
Uh,
Let's hear these.
so, um, the defenders up to Rune, they have a drop rate of 1 in 50.
Yep.
Right? So I started out, got my bronze defender in 6 kills. I was like, great. This is a great start.
That's a spoon.
And then the iron defender came along. I remind you, the drop rate is 1 in 50. I had to kill 379 Cyclops.
And based on how I think the math works on that, you should have had more than, an 80% chance to have it by that point.
Oh, no. I had a 99.9 something percent at having it before that. It was bad. Really bad. To the point where I went
you
to,
were
like,
questioning
all the
if you were doing it right.
Exactly. Is my account broken? This, like, do I need to, like, file a support ticket because my account is in a corrupted state? Do I need to, like, yeah. But then it dropped, and oh my goodness, I was happy with that. Then Steel took another 100, which is still bad if you think it's like 1 in 50. And from then on, it was up. I didn't catch my Black Defender, but Black and Mithril together took me another 90. That's pretty much on rate. And then Adamant, Rune took me like about 25 kills each, and Dragon 50 kills, which is a 1 in 100 drop. So, like, from that point onward, it was alright. But I spent hours getting the Iron Defender. Oh boy.
Aye.
Yeah, I mean, it was good. Like, it allowed me to get like 60 defense, for example, which is great, right? That was a nice thing to get along the way. But oh boy, I did not have a good time. But hey, that's done. The Dragon Defender is gonna carry my melee build for like a long time to come. I upgraded the rest of my equipment as well, so we have like Dragon Plate legs. I got an Obsidian Plate body until I can finally be bothered going to
Oh,
you know.
Okay, I'm gonna plug my ears here.
Yeah, Barbarian Assault. Once that's done, I will swap out the Obsidian Plate.
Yeah.
But, yeah,
and for the record, I have zero interest in doing Barbarian Assault or any achievements or anything associated with that. I treat that thing like the plague.
Yeah, there's a few things to come out
I
of
would
it.
I would rather earn the money for a Bandos chestplate or something similar with
yeah,
a similar
but
strength bonus.
yeah. The thing is, you can spend that money on so many other things that are just
I don't
more
care.
bang for your buck.
I don't
That
care.
are more stats wise, right? Like getting like a ring, for example.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing. Like if you look at sort of the bang for your buck like tier list when it comes to GP, the Bandos chestplate is actually quite far down the list. So,
yeah, because you can get most of that with Obsidian, if I remember the numbers correctly on that, right?
You can get a good chunk of the way with Obsidian. The problem is Obsidian is very, like, you really sacrifice a bunch of defensive capability, even compared to Rune Plate. Whereas the Fighter Torso is better defensively than the Rune Plate Body and better offensively than the Obsidian Plate Body.
That's also why it's such an important PvP item.
Which is why it's, yeah, exactly. And then, yeah, like the only thing that's better than the Fighter Torso is the Bandos chestplate, and that's just not worth the money. So
yeah,
but that's
I mean at that point you might as well use a different style. But I think that summarizes nicely with what you have been doing. So
it's great, like being able to sort of upgrade your kit. Like I'm really feeling. Like, there was this phase in leagues, right, where you sort of get to like a certain point, and all of a sudden everything opens up, right?
Yeah.
Like you unlock that rune crossbow, and you unlock like that extra like relic, and like all of a sudden the entire world is open for you. And I feel like I'm getting to that point.
Yeah,
in, like,
so around
RuneScape
level
now.
70-ish, give or take, then, probably.
Yeah, exactly. But also like my other skills, like everything, like sure, the training is not as fast anymore, but like the big game-changing benefits are sort of in this phase, and I can unlock basically most of the important things in the game with a reasonable time investment.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, when you look at it that way, I think that's what we describe as fairly typical RuneScape mid-game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love it. This might be my favorite phase of the game.
Well, that's why. Well, you know, I think you're right on that, because when you look at it, that's why they put so much effort to get everybody in leagues there so quick.
Yeah.
So, as for me this week, nothing as grandiose as, you know, dry defender runs. Just really basic, simple stuff, as, you know, continuing the farming. Finally got level 75 there. Unfortunately, as people might have gathered, Magic plus Palm is not profitable in the same way that U plus Papaya is. Sad face on that. But in addition to that, it was just a mad scramble, really, to get the last couple hunter levels for Defender of Varrock before that came out. Oh, I just did passive birdhouses, and I think over the span of 2 days did it, you know, every other hour or so when I was up and around.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you could have done it in an hour or two by doing falconry hunting, but at this point in time, why not, you know, just do it with birdhouses passively while doing something else at the same time, right?
Yeah. No, I had the hunter level because I tried to do like 4 or 5, maybe 6 herb runs a day, and I just combined it with a birdhouse run, and you know, it's good money per day. It's good hunter XP per day, and if you keep chipping away at it,
you do see results with it. You do see results with it.
Exactly.
And you are right about our discussion we had about farming before you left, in that if you combine the birdhouses, the hardwoods, the herbs, the wood trees, and the fruit trees all together, you're easily looking at 45, 50 minutes of work for that. So it does become its own, you know, skilling thing that you have to lead into, and it's a lot of running around. So I can appreciate why people don't like farming from that angle. But just in the meantime, you know, after that, did some more agility, because I don't know if I mentioned this on the last show we were on, but I'm only 2 pieces away from full graceful at this point in time now.
Very nice.
So
yeah,
we know how important that is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember that when you did that. But in any event, we also wanted to talk about something else that was posted on the RuneScape website here this week, didn't we? In relation to the Varlamore leaks, as it's called. And I'm trying to rack my brain about if we've ever had a post like this from Jagex before for any of the RuneScape games.
It caught me by surprise. I will tell you.
Yeah. So the story is that they say that there has been a number of videos and screenshots that have been posted on the internet that claim to show sneak peeks or previews of upcoming Varlamore gameplay. They say this isn't true, mostly in parentheses, and they said what happened is that as part of playtesting, some unreleased assets were added to a version of the game cache, which included idle models, text descriptions, music tracks, and the world map. And the things that were posted were comprised of these assets from the game cache that people managed to pull out of the cache on this. And those were the so-called leaks, let's just say, on this. And, I mean, when you look at it in that way, mistakes are going to happen, right?
Yeah.
But I think the part of this post that really got me was when we were looking at this, and they said we banned a number of individuals responsible for market manipulation, and we will continue to monitor the situation on this. And that tells me that, okay, so there was definitely something here. And while anybody can look at the game cache, of course, they did have some very good cautionary messaging that does fall into, what I would call at this point, the standard internet etiquette. The first one is to realize that these are not, representative of final gameplay, and that you should view everything that you see online with a pinch of suspicion.
I mean, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's when I read this section about market manipulation, I was like, of course.
Yeah.
It is such a, I don't know. I feel it's a thing that happens in old school. That's my hunch. But I don't know. I find it such a dishonest
it's that mantra
way.
that anybody will do anything to get ahead, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I find it such a
Come on.
dishonest.
Okay.
Dishonest.
I was going to ask you to finish the sentence, but you did.
Yeah. And I am glad that the consequences of this for these accounts were dire.
Yeah.
Like, perma ban them. Like this, we don't want this kind of stuff.
And another thing I think that's good with this is that they, with this post, hopefully managed to dispel all the innuendo surrounding this, right? Because, there can be cases where a company doesn't want to talk about maybe something from an upcoming piece of content being leaked, so they either deny it or minimize it in a way, but that doesn't necessarily, put down what the community is chattering about behind the scenes. Whereas coming out like this with such a forceful statement, in particular talking about it point by point, really does bring the hammer down and reduce the amount of chance for that innuendo out there to spread and cause problems in the community.
Yep.
So
no, if it's not an official source, then don't trust it when it comes to this kind of stuff.
And that's always been my idea with the podcast too, is that when it comes to things RuneScape, I like to talk about what Jagex has put out officially. And unless it's something like the video we had earlier in the podcast, I even shy away from talking about what the content creators are creating, what the Reddit is talking about, except for very key situations. So I think when you tie all this together, we're kind of in a good spot like this, and like the post says, we're less than a month out now from Varlamore Part 1. Damn,
yeah, that's close, huh?
Yeah. And I think you and I both said that this is in our like top 3 things that we wanted from the Winter Summer roundup when they showed that. So
absolutely.
And it's also a piece of tentpole content too, which allows Jagex to set a message with old school RuneScape and, in effect say, hey, folks playing old school, this is where the focus is right now. If you want to go see the best that the old school team can do, it's in this piece of content. And anything that's, put out before that could diminish it, by way of leak or whatnot. So that's why this post is so important. And I really appreciate the team coming down hard on this and just being so transparent about it. So, all credit where credit is due. But I think that brings us to the end of the program this week. I don't know that I have anything else that I want to mention that we've been doing.
No, a pretty quick one this time around, I think. But
I can guarantee you that the Well Gothic Sleeps episode will not be that short.
No, it will not. It will not. Like, I think for me, definitely, I'm I'm still getting back in the swing of things after my vacation. I was like, oh darn, like we didn't. I don't know. I think we could have maybe predicted Defender of Varrock coming this week, but it caught me completely by surprise, and now it feels a little bit scrambling to get it covered. But hey,
no,
we did it.
and we did the quest. We talked about what needed to be covered, and I feel like for anybody who's playing old school, specifically as well with Secrets of the North or whatever already out there, we kind of have a good idea of which way the old school Mahjarrat direction is going to go differently than the RuneScape 3 one. And I feel like Defender of Varrock was just another stone in that path. So.
Mm-hmm.
In any case, if you want the podcast delivered automatically to you, the best thing you can do is subscribe. Visit update.show/OS. And, of course, subscribe on all your favorite podcast listeners out there. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pocket Casts, and more. Just click the button of your favorite platform, and do leave us a like and subscribe on YouTube as well, youtube.com/OSRS update. But with that being said, we'll be back next week for another episode of the Old School RuneScape Update. See you then, everyone. Take care.
Bye.